Hello, rugby fans. I'm Joe Harrington here at Flow Sports and Flow Rugby. With me, as always, our guy in the UK, Philip Binden, taking the podcast at his parents' house. Love it. Renovating the home office there. Um, yeah, Philip, I'm decked out in my Cincinnati Reds gear because in my brain, free agent Kyle Schwarber from Cincinnati is a rugby fan, so maybe he's
Mhm.
watching this and he'll be like, you know what, that guy's a Reds fan. I'm going to sign with them this week. Um, Also, the football season, the NFL season, definitely ended yesterday, so we're good. Um, we have moved on to baseball season, like every good Cincinnati sports fan.
I mean, the fact that Joe Burrow's season is ending at the beginning of December is heartbreaking. But for what it's worth, Joe, my Indianapolis Colts season might as well be over. Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, in his boot on the sideline. We once again lost to the Jaguars, who are an absolute joke of a franchise. And yeah, even though we're 8-5, I think the season is pretty much over with the Texans and Jags getting better.
Well, I will say this. There are some teams that played like Joe Burrow before the interceptions and after the interceptions, and then there are some Investec Champions Cup clubs that played like Joe Burrow during those interceptions. That's what we're going to talk about here, my guy. All right, first impressions of the Investec Champions Cup round one.
Yeah, I think, Joe, in terms of the results, it very much played to script. The big dogs played, well, got the results. There was some mixed performances, and there was some also sort of eye-raising performances from teams who looked awfully lot better than I thought they might coming into this season. In terms of the real heavy hitters, Toulouse and Leinster looked a little bit hit and miss at times, as did UBB against the Vodacom Bulls. But ultimately, all three secured big bonus point wins. Bath looked incredibly impressive against my Munster, absolutely tonking them straight out the gate. I mean, after the opening 20 minutes, it all settled down, but that was too late. They were already 28-0 up, and you'll be happy to hear my lecturer Connor Wishart. Shout out to him. Made me wear his Bath jersey all day in my data analysis lecture today. So thank you for that, Connor. I had an extra tight fitting Bath outfit, so thank you for that. But
Well, at
yeah, I
least
think yeah.
he should have made you. He should have made you talk in a Scottish accent like Finn Russell.
I, good old Finn is loving life. I did enjoy. Finn had a moment that was picked up on the referee mic where he was joking about Ronan O'Gara with the French referee who had sent O'Gara off the week previously. So that was pretty good. And then in terms of the other teams who played really well, the Saints and Sarries looked really strong. Both looked really good. Gloucester was that sort of eye raising performance for me. They looked a lot better than I thought they might be. And then I know we're not talking about the Challenge Cup just yet, but there were some really good performances there too. So I think it very much played to script in terms of the results, but I think it's a much more open competition this season than really even the last 4 or 5 years. I really believe there's probably 6, 7 teams in the running this season.
Yeah, my thoughts here. I got three big ones. First of all, bummed that the Scarlets couldn't pull that match out because they have just a brutal schedule the rest of the way. If they had won that match, they really would have been in the running to get to the Challenge Cup. I mean, obviously, they would have been undefeated still. So I guess there could have been hope that making
Mm-hmm.
the knockout stage in the Champions Cup. But man, it's going to be really tough for them to win a match in this. So bummed on that front. Um, Edinburgh with the win over Toulon. That was just really
Mm-hmm.
impressive. That was the last match of the round. I didn't even put that on our notes because it was the last match of the round. I already had my computer off, but wow, what a! I told you, man, it is tough for any club to go to Scotland and win there. More on that later in this podcast. Uh, and then I thought the match of the round. There were a lot of great matches, but Northampton Poe really lived up to the billing. That was just a great match, great rugby match.
Yeah, no, that was for me absolutely the game of the weekend. Back and forth. Of course, the Saints scored with about 3, 4 minutes to go through George Hendy on the left hand side. Really nice bit of play. Finn Smith dropped back for a drop goal that would have put the Saints ahead, and instead he didn't quite have enough time. Made a little half break, found Hendy on the outside, and finished off. It was nearly every try in that match was pretty spectacular and kind of in the running for try of the season. Poe played really well against last year's finalists too, so I don't take anything away from them. It does hurt when you lose at home, and it makes it very tough to get a good seeding. But Poe look every bit of a knockout team for me in that group. But the Saints, even without Tommy Freeman, for example, there looked a lot better than I think a lot of people might have expected. I mean, they've been very good in the Premiership so far for anyone who's been tracking, but they're really on course for another deep run in this competition, I think.
There was a lot of really great matches. That UBB Bulls match, you're
Mm,
sending me messages saying, "Wow, the Bulls," and then I'm sending you messages in the second half going, "Never underestimate the heart of a champion."
there we
UBB
go.
just came out. Uh, that Glasgow Sale Sharks match. I mean, Sale takes that big lead, and you're like, should we be worried about the Warriors? And then what did they realize? I think it was 26 straight they reeled off to take
Mm,
control of that. Really, really impressive. And that is my segue. I thought the Glasgow Warriors were the most impressive team this week.
mm,
You can make a case for a lot of clubs, but I think the Warriors jumping down early after it was kind of a different team that played the Scarlets the week before, but they got shut out the week
mm,
before. So I guess you're looking at that and saying, okay, they've been outscored 35 to nothing so far in like and what 100 minutes, and then they come out and they just look like a completely different team. I think the Warriors are one of those teams that you're not going to be surprised if they're in the quarterfinals of the Champions Cup. They're a legit great club. You're going to be pretty surprised if they make the semis in this tournament. Um, but I thought they were the most impressive team of the week. Let's listen to Josh McKay. He was talking about this match, and of course, they play to lose this week, and it's just going to be a big match. Take a listen to Josh after the match against the Sale Sharks.
Well, we are down here with the Investec Champions Cup player of the match, Joshy Mackay. Joshy, talk us through that one.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised, to be honest, at the end there, Will, so I was just doing my job out there for the boys. Obviously, he was getting peppered with the high balls back there, so I was just trying to catch him. I've been dropping a few, so just trying to catch him this week, mate.
Yeah, not a night for the fullbacks. It was one that they kept going after, but Glasgow really secure there. You look at the way that Carl Stein chased after everything. Was that a little bit of what you chatted about in the week? Did you know that they would come there?
Yeah, obviously, we know, we sort of previewed they'd put quite a few kicks up. Obviously, the conditions pretty wet in the first half, swirling winds, so we knew the bombs were coming and they were going to come pretty heavy and thick and fast, so just trying to manage that and then put pressure back on them. I thought the forwards were unbelievable tonight. They did an absolute job for us.
And chat to Franco Smith before the game, and obviously a bounce back from last week, a tough loss at Scarlets, which obviously no one was happy with, but a new trophy to go after, Champions Cup. How impressed were you with the boys tonight?
Yeah, obviously massive. We wanted to have a massive step up from last week. I think the boys delivered that, all driven by the forwards. They were huge. Champions Cup footy, how good, it's the one you want to be playing in.
And then you got to bounce back very quickly, get that stitched up because you got Toulouse at home next week.
Yeah, that's an exciting challenge, isn't it? So we know they'll be coming pretty hot, so we'll recover up and get stuck into them next week.
Go and get some stitches on that and enjoy the bus journey back, brother.
Cheers, Wills.
Philip, what was your take on that match?
Yeah, I think the Warriors showed exactly why they've won a title in recent years and why they're sort of contenders in both the URC and this competition. For me, they are among those teams who could win it, depending on the draw. Um, no one's going to want to go to Scotstoun in a quarterfinal, right? That's going to be a really tough matchup for anyone. So that's really important to the Warriors to get that sort of home seeding and run through. Now, there is some really big challenges coming their way, none more so than this weekend, I believe. So that the Warriors really are going to be tested, but you look at that squad, right, and you've got Sione Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones. Hugh Jones obviously didn't play this weekend, but Stafford McDowell is another Scottish international centre there. They're kind of just pretty stacked across the board, and they've got the forward pack this time that can really compete. Now, would I back them against, say, UBB or Stade Toulousain in a semi-final? I probably wouldn't, or a quarter-final, especially on the road. But could they do it? Of course they could. They're a real power outfit. I just think Franco Smith has them playing a really nice brand of rugby, but not one that they're kind of tied to any specific game plan that's just all out one game plan. They do tend to transition against their opponents depending on who they're facing. So, yeah, very impressed with the Warriors, I have to say. Very, very impressed.
I picked the Stormers to win this competition. I understand that, but what I'm about to say is this. If there's one match that Toulouse is going to lose in this competition, it's going to be them going to Scotland and trying to beat a team that just doesn't lose in Scotland. And I think this is the best chance for them to take a loss, um, because I think Toulouse is probably not going to play very many road games in the round of 16. I think that in a final, I mean, them versus what I saw from the Stormers at full strength would be a really good match, or against them against Leinster, but it looks like they are just above everyone else at full strength now with DuPont back. But this is the match I feel like they could lose just because of it being in Glasgow.
Yeah, it's a really good yardstick for both teams. Now, I would be surprised. I get where you're coming from, but I would be surprised if Toulouse lose just purely based on the depth of their squad. So when you think about who they're going to roll off the bench in that match, it's going to be pretty stacked. But like you said, when you look at the Toulouse fixtures in that pool, that's about the only match I think Toulouse could lose. Um, so yeah, my guess is that Toulouse go unbeaten in this group, but this is going to be a really good yardstick. And I think if the Warriors finish close to Toulouse, that's a really good result. I mean, if they beat Toulouse, they've blown this competition wide open because you then have the case where Leinster, I really think will probably go 4 from 4, even though they've not been great. I would say UBB are going to go 4 from 4. The Saints will probably go 4 from 4. So then all of a sudden Toulouse drop right down into that bracket, and like you said, Joe, if they lose, they're on the road, and then anything's possible. They're not going to want to go to. I know they have been and beaten Leinster, but they're not going to want to face Leinster in a quarterfinal in Dublin or one of those matches. And they certainly don't want to face UBB in a quarterfinal either. It's not really what they would want, but. Yeah, that's going to be a cracker this weekend.
Philip, who were you most impressed with in this round one?
Yeah, I think mainly maybe because it did come against the team I support, but Bath were just so powerful. I mean, they just blew Munster off the park. Now, when I look at it, I don't think Tyke Byrne necessarily deserved a yellow card, and I certainly don't think it was a penalty try. I think that was pretty rash by the referee, and that changed things. And when I saw the two teams were announced on Friday, it was already a tough task for Munster, but not having Jack Crowley or Michael Milne, even Ollie Jaeger still out, and then Jean Klein pulled out that day, Jack O'Donoghue. So there was a lot of Munster's big hitters not available. Brian Gleeson injured long term. So I think I picked last week. I felt pretty confident Bath were going to win, but the manner in which they did it just really proved to me that they can go toe to toe with anyone. Losing Will Stewart's a big loss. Their tight head, because it just puts a little bit of stress on their depth. But they have got, I believe, it's an Archie Griffin, the Welsh internationals there. So behind Thomas Dutoy. So that Bath team are just built for winning competitions. I could see them being real contenders this season in the Champions Cup. Finn Russell's at the peak of his powers, and across the board, there's just so much quality.
Yeah, we've talked about this pool being pretty top heavy, and that's why Toulon losing was eye opening to me in this, because now I have a lot of faith that Munster could drop that Bath match and really hold their own. I mean, they got to win at least. I mean, you got to win at least one match to have a shot at going to the round. Two matches, I think, probably gets them there. They're going to be hunting for bonus points, obviously, and they don't get to play. They don't have to play Edinburgh, obviously, but they're going to be hunting for bonus points moving forward.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Joe. And it goes back to what we just said about Toulouse there. If Toulouse drop enough points, say they did drop that game away to Glasgow, it's the same for kind of Bath. If Bath lose away to Toulon, all of a sudden the pool is wide open again. Really, if Bath go away and they beat Toulon this weekend, it'll have two results. I mean, Bath will be clear favourites to top the group, and rightly so, because I'm confident that they're still a lot stronger than Edinburgh. And then you've got the likes of, you look at where Munster will be. Munster have got Gloucester and Cass to come. So then suddenly Munster go to Toulon with the potential of facing a Toulon side who are 0 from 2, in the opening 2 rounds, and how seriously do they take the Champions Cup then? So, yeah, all to play for this weekend. We talk about big matches. That's that's back to back big hitters this weekend. I think that Bath Toulon match is going to be a cracker because that Toulon side are better than what they showed in Edinburgh, in my opinion.
Yeah, and good teams, just in all sports, I think really good teams do not lose back to back games very often. So
Hmm.
yeah, I agree. I think that'll be an absolute war.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when we're talking this time next week, I think the complexion of all the pools will look very different. So yeah, it's going to
Now
be interesting.
the answer to this question could be too long, but which club really hurt themselves in round one?
Yeah, Munster, because it was a heavy loss. They didn't pick up any points. They had ample opportunity to score 2 more tries and at least get the bonus point for the try scoring and possibly finish within, 7. That they really should have done that. So I think Munster hurt themselves, but really the Vodacom Bulls for me are the biggest losers here because you drop one game at home and that's pretty much it. I think like the Bulls have 2 tough road games to come. They've obviously still got another home game to come, but I think the Bulls are cooked in this competition, is my opinion.
I agree with you. They were my team that really hurt themselves, and the fact that they were up so big against Bordeaux, and we talked about this in the lead up. It's for all these South African teams, you have such an advantage playing at
Mm,
home in South Africa against these teams because, especially, uh, you know, in the round one. Uh, I thought that was just a stunning one. Now, Bordeaux probably should be on the list of teams that had one of the most impressive weeks because, like, good
hmm.
for them for rallying. But yeah, I thought that was a crushing loss for the Bulls because now going to Europe this week, I mean, you don't know what type of team they're going to have. You don't know who they're bringing. You really have to go undefeated at home if you're one of these South Africa teams to take advantage of that schedule.
Yeah, I agree, Joe. And they've got the Saints this week. I mean, it doesn't really let up. So basically, they've got the Saints this week. Really, I'm penciling the Saints in for a 5 point win there. I don't think the Bulls pick up a point on the road there. And then suddenly, you're 0-2. You've got Bristol in round 3, which is a very winnable game at home. But then you have to go to Po in the final round, which is a very tough challenge. So suddenly you're kind of staring down the barrel of it being in a shootout with Bristol for that final spot. Um, and it's going to be. I think it's just too much of an ask. And actually, one point on the Saints that I forgot to mention was JJ Van der Mesch, the giant South African second row. He is why I think the Saints are even heavier contenders this season. The guy's 155 kilograms. He's a unit. I mean, that's what I felt they were missing in the Champions Cup final. Now I know they had a lot of bad luck with injuries, but a big hitter in the second row, absolutely invaluable. You look at what Will Skelton did for La Rochelle and Saracens previously. Emmanuel Meafu, the same with Toulouse, and then UBB have a multiple big heavy hitters too. So, yeah, I think for me the Bulls are cooked. I think they're really in a lot of trouble. Whereas at least, like you said, the Sharks lost on the road, so they've still got 2 home games. The Stormers won on the road, so they've got 2 home games. Yeah.
I mean, the Stormers stole a match in France that I think a lot of people thought they probably would have lost, especially when you look at that lineup. I think the Sharks lost a match everyone assumed they would lose,
Hmm.
especially when you look at the lineup. This is the match I think that we expected the Bulls to have the
Hmm.
best shot at winning because of obviously just UBB coming down. We don't know what roster UBB is going to come out, but credit to them. I mean, they played their top players. I mean, Pinot had that great try. So I always love it when teams take the challenge of doing that. Um, One thing out of that Northampton Saints and that Poe match is a lot of really young, great rugby players. We talked about this a lot last week on the site. I guess when we say talk, I mean, we wrote about it a lot, and then Philip and I chatted about it. And then I'm watching Saracens, and Noah just has that great try, and he looks great. And I'm asking Philip where he's going to be in the top 100, and Philip says, "Not so fast, probably not this year." But man, a lot of young stars in this year's Investec Champions Cup. Uh, I'm going to say this because I asked for five. of the best players 25 and under in this competition, and you say you could just go off. Who are the 10 best young players in the world now or in this competition?
Yeah, so you look at young Henry Pollock, obviously catches all the headlines. He's phenomenal. And then across the board, every team has a bunch of good players. I know Munster, you've got Brian Gleeson, who has had a tough enough run to get to where he is now. He dislocated, I believe it was dislocated his elbow against Leinster. He's back in January. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and he is back by then. He's a phenomenal operator there. The Saints have several of them. Noah Kaluri, as you touched on there with Saris. Then in South Africa, you got Zachary Porthen with the Stormers, is a really talented tight head prop down there. Cameron Hanekom, who's currently out injured. The Bulls number 8 might just be. We talk about Pollock. Hanekom might just be the best back row prospect in the world at the moment. Iman Khan, who played for the Stormers this week, the scrum half, really caught my eye. I thought he was really good. Jeepers, I'm just rattling names off here. Sorry, Joe, I'm probably not keeping on top of my list on
No,
this
that's
one, but
good.
as we roll through it. And then you look at all the French teams, and there was, every time you watch one of these French teams, you're just in awe. I mean, we keep forgetting about Louis Bielbiaré is still, 22, 21. He's a real operator there. And they have is it Marco Gazzotti, I think is his name, the back row for UBB, who's another really good young player. JJ Van der Mesch, we touched on with Northampton, he's a little bit older, but a really good player. So I can kind of keep rolling on that. I mean, Leinster have quite a few coming through. I know Ulster and Connacht are in the Challenge Cup. They've got some good players coming through. Of course, Sam Prendergast is only 22 at Leinster. He's got a long way to go in terms of his development. So, but when you look at it, yeah, jeepers, Joe, I could give you, if you want me to give you an order of 10, I could keep going. Sorry, there's so many names. I know we're
Okay,
gonna.
well, I'll rephrase this to say, um, let's say you and we move to Stirling, Scotland. I just know that from history, right? Stirling is a town in Scotland, right? Uh,
Certainly is.
we move there and we're going to start the FloRugby Club. And they say, all right, you can pick any player in the world under 25 as your number one pick, as your expansion pick. So I'll we can talk about like, okay, age doesn't matter, you can pick whatever, but that's just our top 100 list. Like we all know we're taking Artie or Antoine. Only the young guys. Expansion. We're trying to win for the next 10 years. We're trying to find the face of our franchise. All right. Sterling, Scotland, if you want a pro rugby club, you can email us and we'll see what we can do. But all right, so FloRugby Club in Sterling, Scotland. Who's our number one pick?
I don't think he counts as a prospect, but Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu for sure. Lock him in. Sorry, Sasha, no more beach days down in Camps Bay in Cape Town for you. You are hitting the road and moving to Stirling.
Sterling, you're gonna be great. We're gonna have yeah, we'll have some flannel in our jerseys. It'll be great.
There we go. There we go. Sounds great. So Sasha's my number one, starting at 10 for us for the next 10 years, rolling through. So then if we're looking in the pack, we've obviously got Henry Pollock. Both his parents are Scottish. So moving him back north of the border, he'd be probably our man in the pack to start with and build around from there. So that's probably our two hottest prospects, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? We can build on this and we can start some momentum. But yeah, I'm really thinking maybe Elliot can show us a little map of Stirling, Scotland on there. I love it.
Lovely. Yeah.
Either that or I just watched Braveheart way too many times. But there we go.
Yeah.
I love it. Sasha, the face of Stirling, Scotland rugby. Love it.
There we go.
All right. Moving on. Another big thing that happened last week. It was the World Cup draw happened. Phil, my number one takeaway that I saw on this draw was I didn't see any pool that stuck out to me as like the pool of death. Like the last World Cup, there certainly was. It seems like there are pools with two really good teams that you could see going far, and then two other teams that are long shots. I guess that it is. Um, what was your takeaway from the draw?
Yeah, I've had a bit of time to reflect on this now, I think, Joe. I think World Rugby have got to be quite careful in that they've probably watered it down a little bit too much. I think bringing in extra teams is great because we want to grow the game, but going to six pools rather than having the four has just made this all a little bit too soft, like you're saying. I think if we're talking about a pool of death, it's not because of the pool itself, but Ireland and Scotland, the loser of that plays France in the last 16, probably. I mean, that's a killer last 16. The winner then plays against probably a third ranked team from another pool. So I, I'm not a biggest fan. And then on the other side of the draw, it's going to be the All Blacks and Springboks in the quarterfinal. Like, why have we lined that up? Or the Springboks and the Wallabies, whatever way it plays out, it's just all a bit funny on that side of things. But yeah, like you said, Joe, no real pool of death. I mean, Australia and New Zealand being in a pool is pretty blockbuster. That's an interesting one. But outside of that, what I don't get is why the rankings are so important if you're just going to randomly draw where teams are. I mean, there's no difference between being ranked number one and number six in the world at the moment because you just get randomly drawn. My preference would have been that we do, the Springboks deserve to be world number one. Why don't they play the weakest team and band number two in their group and then go up that way? And then you can just flip flop from there on in because it almost doesn't matter once you get past band two because it's quite a drop off compared to the tier one teams. But yeah, interesting draw. I think the action really starts in that quarterfinal again where you're looking at some pretty tasty matchups. Ireland, Argentina. I saw a very funny thing on Reddit where someone projected out the World Cup and they put Ireland versus Argentina in a quarterfinal with Ireland winning, and they put "I know" in brackets around Ireland. So that was pretty
Well,
good. But yeah,
I get World Rugby is trying to, they're trying to sell tickets. So I guess putting New Zealand and Australia and getting that Bledsoe Cup action
yeah,
in there makes sense. But I was a little surprised by having the the two teams that are closest in that region, right? Like Australia and New Zealand in the same bracket. I figured that they would space that out, but I think those are going to be big matches. Uh, where do you think that match? Where do you think that match should be played?
have they released the fixtures at the time of recording? But I think, in theory, I think they should make it the opening one in Sydney. Just start this competition with a bang. I mean, if the Wallabies win that, they tear open this competition. Now their reward is playing South Africa in a quarterfinal, so that's not great. But it's a hell of a statement to beat the All Blacks in the opener. I mean, like France beat the All Blacks in the opener last time, didn't they? So that was yeah, and still the All Blacks made the final, not France. So maybe it would be the same thing again.
So a peek behind the scenes in my life. I like to play the video game Civilization 6, and I
Nice.
like to rig it. So I'm starting in real world, and I almost always pick Australia because it's so hard for the other teams to get down to Australia that you
Yeah.
can just build up there. So I know these towns just from there. So we got Adelaide,
Mm-hmm.
Brisbane, Melbourne, Newcastle, Perth, Sydney, and Townsville are the
Mm.
host cities for this World Cup.
Mm.
Um, I think that obviously Sydney, big stadium, you probably want someone there, but I know Perth, they've had some big matches there.
Mm.
Um, I would say you probably want to put that that Australia All Blacks match is going to be in the national stadium for Australia, right? So
Has to be, has to be, and they'll sell. It'll be a huge event if they get that one going. So, it was funny. Dan Carter was talking about it. Wouldn't it be great if Australia and New Zealand end up in the same pool? And there it goes. So, maybe there is a little bit of home cooking going on at World Rugby. Who knows?
I did. We talked about Georgia being left out of this nation's series, and then they get put in a pool with South Africa. But it actually, I think it actually favors. I think Georgia could get out of this pool because they beat Italy. I mean, yeah, they're gonna beat Romania. I think so. They could be
Yeah.
the number two team in that pool.
Yeah, they certainly could. My guess would be that they're going to be the third team, which means they might be the best of the top of the third teams to get through to the last 16. That would be the route I think they get. Because I think they'll beat Romania pretty handily and they'll be close-ish to Italy. So yeah, I think their best route is finishing third in that group and rolling through. And I thought on another one, the US's group I thought was it's about as good as it could get for the Eagles there because they'll back themselves to be able to compete well with Samoa, and probably beat Samoa would be their view. And then Japan, you play against both of these teams pretty frequently. And we asked Scott Lawrence about that recently. So, Scott was pretty much saying, look, it's we're focusing on ourselves, but that you can't really hide away from the fact that the US play those two teams really frequently, and they'll back themselves to beat them. France are obviously the heavy favorites in that group, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like they could have been put in pool one with New Zealand and Australia and Chile, right? I mean, I think that this is a best. I would say this is close to a best case scenario for the pool because yeah, you play Japan, you play Samoa a lot. I mean, it's not like you're going to be in there with two European clubs that you haven't seen a lot, or obviously Australia and New Zealand, which they don't play a ton. You're set. Go watch rugby this week. It's going to be great. We've got so much rugby this month. We've got so many derbies coming up after Champions Cup, North South Derby. All the Welsh teams play each other. Edinburgh and Glasgow. They might have to fly us to that one. I'm ready. Sorry, Kim and Teddy. I'm leaving. Daddy's going to Scotland to watch some rugby. Um, Check it out if you're not a subscriber yet to FloRugby. You're going to have to subscribe to watch these matches this week. We're not giving any of these ones away for free. Uh, Philip, till next time, thanks. Go watch rugby, everyone.